Sorry, beloveds, we got cut off again, but this is just going to begin where the other one. I was speaking of um, another video that I'm going to do at a later date, probably within the next couple of days, on the DeSantis um, prank of privilege and what it means spiritually to the spiritually conscious awareness, what we need to observe, what is happening, what it means, specifically to based upon the world grid, based upon the northern and southern hemispheres of North and South America, of this particular time and age, the convergence of all the frequencies and harmonies, the celestial notes and lights and ways and means of this time to bring forth, again, the age of Aquarius, the ultraviolet, the violet, the indigo rays being extremely important at this time. An accumulation of frequencies through the indigo children, through everything being communicated, everything being received at this time by the indigo children and shared from this way and waves. And beloveds, use discernment with all of this, because there are many who have stolen the words and that use the words for their own agendas. I'm not speaking of them. I'm saying get this information for yourself. I'm saying pray over it. Do whatever you need to expand your conscious awareness, okay? Not from the perspective of what someone else says, but from what comes from your heart, what comes from directly from your spirit collective, okay? As insight, as inspiration, as revelation to you. And again, briefly, I was speaking of the DeSantis. What he has done lately. And beloveds, I ask you to observe. I don't ask you to get into the thoughts and the feelings of it. I don't ask you to lose control of your thoughts or your feelings one way or another. I am saying to you, Spirit is saying to you, we are saying to you, my collective, that you are not your thoughts or your feelings. That you are so much more than that. But you need to be discerning, and you need to be aware of the lights, spectrums, and frequencies that you interact with. You need to be aware and knowledgeable of how to transmute them, how to use them as seeds to expand your conscious awareness, or how to use them as compost. Okay? Nothing is wasted. Okay, let me keep going, beloveds. The indigo child, the child who is born of the union of light of left and right hemispheres. This is the left side and the right side of the brain, and how each is supposed to dominate one thing or another within your being. Okay, and how the ambidextrous child isn't bound by those particular rules or set of values, and how sometimes that ambidextrous child is taught to be either right-handed or left-handed, depending upon their teacher and their teacher's perspective of the dominant hand, so to speak. Take this conversation as you will, beloved. It is very powerful. It has deeper meanings. Its surface is very much on point, but its depth, the signs, the symbols, it's a well-woven tapestry of spiritual insight that's being gifted at this moment. Okay. The indigo child, I don't know why this is making me so uncomfortable right now. Okay, let me just keep going. The indigo child, the child who is born of the union of the left and right hemisphere, the child that is more sensitive to spiritual presence and able to create and communicate from that connection with its collective. This child becomes itself through knowing itself only, through its own choices and decisions, based upon its flow and ebb to the currents of spiritual conscious awareness from ground zero as home base, the balance of all sums and equations, the harmony rather than the chaos of its convictions and conversions of communication with its higher selves that exist as eternity in the ever-born moment of now. That's a lot. That's a lot, beloveds. But you are at a point now where you are able to hold that. And it is not too much for you. And it is not something that's over your head. Okay? You are not ignorant of yourself as a conscious being of choice. And that is showing itself by the voice, by the stand that you're taking individually and collectively, and is showing itself in politics, is showing itself in the religions, is showing itself as a need of the people for change. Change comes by the people, through the people, for the people. Okay? It is never through the kings and the dictators and the blah, 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 blah. Because they serve themselves first and foremost. As you can see with DeSantis using human beings to make a point with other taxpayers' money. Okay? With no thought at all given to what people have to do to get up and go to work every day and have that money taken out of their checks. What they have to sacrifice, what their children have to sacrifice because of that little bit of money being taken out of their checks so the politicians can do what they want with it. We're getting there, beloveds. We're getting there. This is where the change starts. It starts with us. Let me keep going. Another thing is, like I said in the very first video, be aware of who the Indigo children are. The Indigo children are they are the little messiahs. They are the one who Jesus meant when be like children. That's what an Indigo child is. An Indigo child knows that this world is wrong and it does not it gets tired of bumping its head against the walls that have been built by humans because it knows of the invisible, spiritual freedom that exists within itself. And it does everything it can to create that outside of itself, to give birth to it outside of itself, to communicate it to others. Others that it knows is itself. But those others say, you're weird. You're not like me. You got issues. You crazy. That's an indigo child. And an indigo child is okay with being called crazy. They're like, thank you, thank you, thank you. That means I'm not of this world. Thank you. Thank you for seeing that I'm different. Thank you. Auras are magnetic fields of frequencies and spectrums governed by the heart, which creates a halo. A protective shield, a halo. A protective shield wall around the being's impulses to co-create constantly from a place of mature choice and obligation to the highest, most absolute self being the first choice of consideration and not the last. As has been in our past, we are at a point of deep change. Enough beings are grounding themselves and giving rebirthing them and giving themselves permission to rebirth themselves as phoenixes in the Garden of Eden, creating a whole new world of unconditional love as a collective existence held in deep contrast against the past ways of existing. Ascending to higher frequencies and spectrums of light and love calls forth a unity of inner peace and unconditional love, which has no need for fear, doubt, pain, or suffering in order to recognize and co-create balance, from stabilizing and transmuting the poison thinking which led to poison feelings of a past based upon the witness and observation over many millennials and worlds. So, beloveds, understand that just truth is perverted by a lie. Okay? Truth is polluted by a lie. Truth is disorganized by lies. Truth is invalidated by lies. Okay? And so when you have let me know how to say this, Mama. When you have a proclamation of concerns given over New World Order, NWO, New World Order, I want you to understand where that comes from. The heart of it, the seat of it, the throne of it. Okay? Came from Genesis. Genesis 3, verse 15. Very plain. So it's something that's been in the making, and it's something that's been known that was going to come about for ages. And so you have those who choose lies to pervert it, Just say, oh, the New World Order is this, you need to be afraid of it. The New World Order is that, you need to be careful when you hear that, or when that happens, or this is a cult, and the things are endless. The Bible speaks of rebirth, being a new person. That's the new world. That's the New World Order. It's spiritual instead of mental, physical senses. It's ruled from that realm, from the indigo, from the crown. Corona should have woke us up to that. Let me finish, beloveds. Halos, protective shields walled around the beings, impulses to co-create constantly from a place of mature choice and obligation to the highest, most absolute self, being the first choice of consideration and not the last. As has been in our past, we are at a point of deep change. Enough beings are grounding themselves and rebirthing themselves as phoenixes in the Garden of Eden, creating a whole new world of unconditional love as a collective existence. When I just said that, Kanye West, I think it's called The Runway, where he had a archetype of a phoenix come, and he showed it the human world, and the ballerinas dancing, and was at a feast, and they wanted her to eat the bird, and it was very offensive to her, and she let go. She was attached to him romantically. She wanted to be with him romantically, but his world was too different. And she came to do something. She came to expand her own spiritual conscious awareness, and she did so. Watch the video. There's a lot of symbolism there. There's a lot of, look at the colors. The colors being more pastel than the bold colors, and the pink and the greens. A lot, like I said, beloveds, there is so much going on right now with this communication of unconditional love as a collective existence, held in deep contrast against the past ways of existing, ascending to higher frequencies and spectrums of light and love. This calls forth a unity of inner peace and unconditional love, which has no need for fear, doubt, pain, or suffering in order to recognize and co-create balance, from stabilizing and transmuting the poisoned thinking which led to poisoned feelings. So, in order to keep making these changes, we have to discern what has poisoned us as a society, what has poisoned us as a people, what has divided us as a collective, what is the division that causes cults and sects and people to abandon themselves to that way, to that frequency of being, rather than to value their own unique spiritual voice. In order to recognize and co-create balance, from stabilizing and transmuting the poisoned thinking which led to poisoned feelings of a past, based upon the witness and observation over many millennials and worlds of multiverses, exchanging shared interests for the profit and prophetic times of spiritual wealth and spiritual debt that causes spiritual famine equals you reap what you sow. This is the spiritual university of existence. It is both written and spoken law. It cannot be undone. Its justice cannot be cheated or denied, not even by reasons of insanity. Giggle and blush. So observe the craziness of the end of these times and days. Know that it is passing on, it is dying. Many will grieve over it as it is the only way they know. Sapient life expands within its own conscious awareness, within its own spiritual conscious awareness. When this is recognized and acknowledged from the awareness perspective of the spirit within, inner peace begins to take root, and no amount of storms will shake your eternal resolve to simply just be the ever-changing one, the ever-expanding one, the container, womb, mother of both yin and yang, omnipotent and omniscient. And that's going to do it for this video, beloveds. I know that there's a lot here to grasp, and it's very deep. And creating a halo, the spiritual ability of an indigo child, creating a force of spiritual discernment, okay, being able to choose as an aspect of your spirit, to make right and wrong choices, to learn, to expand, to grow, to mature into making better choices. And then when that time arises, to make better choices, to govern your kingdom as a sovereign being, not under the influence of others, but of your own collective spiritual frequency as a hierarchy, and not those of man. Okay, beloveds, that is going to do it. This is Motherhood Wisdom. Again, I would say stay tuned to my Facebook page, because there's much more there. Goes in much more depth. The references are there. And this is for you, beloveds. It's for you to know you. So if that's unimportant to you, so be it. But it's important enough for me to not only receive it, but to communicate what I receive. Okay? And that's done out of unconditional love. So, take it as you will. From an indigo child, creating her own halo, creating her own field, learning how to choose what she wants to leave there and what she needs to take out, because she manifests. Through the laws of the universe, she draws things to her. She creates and co-creates situations and circumstances that she's learning to choose herself from a higher point of view, higher perspective, a higher value system, a much more ancient, much more mature value system, based upon spiritual self-knowledge, based upon the way of truth, the light, the frequencies of this truth, and how it rings my bell inside, and how it satisfies, because it leaves no doubts. It only allows you to keep expanding, going deeper into that spiritual knowledge of self, and being able to view voyeuristically everything that exists for you to observe. Okay, beloveds, thank you. This is Motherhood Wisdom, Valerie Ames. Valerie Ames Middlebrook on Facebook, Motherhood Wisdom on Blog Talk Radio. Namaste, beloveds.